The platform is quieter than you expected. Not silent, but carefully restrained, as if the night has chosen to speak only in small, necessary sounds. A distant announcement echoes once, then fades into the vaulted ceiling. It does not repeat itself. It does not wait for acknowledgement. The train rests along the platform with a confidence that feels earned. Dark steel, polished edges, windows holding faint reflections of the lamps overhead. Nothing about it feels hurried. You step closer, and the scale of it becomes clearer. This is not a train meant for rushing crowds. It is meant for time to slow as soon as you arrive. The door to your carriage opens smoothly. There is no mechanical complaint, no sharp sound, just a quiet invitation to step inside. Warm air meets you immediately. It carries the scent of wood that has been polished many times, fabric that has absorbed years of movement, and something faintly metallic that belongs to the rails themselves. The corridor is narrow, but deliberate. Soft lamps are set into the walls at regular intervals, creating pools of light that do not overlap too aggressively. Each one holds its own space. Your footsteps are muted by the carpet beneath you. They sound less like movement and more like confirmation that you are already here. A compartment door waits, unmarked, unhurried. You open it and step inside. The cabin feels contained in the best possible way. Mahogany panels line the walls, their surface smooth and warm to the touch. They do not reflect light sharply, they absorb it. A velvet seat sits beside the window, deep in color and patient in shape. It looks as though it has been waiting, not for you specifically, but for whoever arrives next. A small lamp rests within arm's reach. Its glow is gentle, amber-toned, and steady. It does not flicker. It does not compete with the darkness outside the glass. You set your belongings down without ceremony. There is no need to arrange them carefully. They can remain exactly where they fall. As you sit, the seat responds slowly, evenly. There's no sudden give, no stiffness to overcome. It supports you in a way that does not draw attention to itself. For a moment, nothing happens. The train remains still. The platform outside remains present. The night holds its breath alongside you. Through the window, reflections overlap gently. The interior of the cabin blends with the platform lights beyond the glass. Edges soften. Shapes lose their urgency. Your hands come to rest naturally, perhaps on the armrest, perhaps in your lap. Wherever they land feels acceptable. You do not need to adjust them. Farther down the carriage, a door closes. The sound travels briefly, then dissolves into the wood-lined corridor. It does not linger. The lamp continues to glow, unchanged. Its presence is constant, reassuring without demanding attention. This pause is not a delay. It is part of the design. When the train finally begins to move, it does so without announcement. There is no dramatic signal, no sharp transition. The first sensation is subtle, a slight shift beneath you, a quiet agreement between steel and rail. Outside, the platform begins to drift, not quickly, not with urgency. Lights stretch into soft lines, then relax back into points. Their reflections slide across the glass, then disappear. The city does not fall away all at once. It loosens its grip slowly, as if reluctant to fully let go. Inside the cabin, nothing changes. The lamp remains steady. The seat remains supportive. The air holds the same warmth, the same stillness. Breathing finds its own pace. It lengthens slightly without instruction. It settles where it wants to be. There is no reason to follow the movement outside, no reason to track progress. The train continues forward, carrying the night with it. Buildings thin out beyond the window. The density of light decreases. Dark spaces begin to appear between illuminated ones. Each layer of sound fades gently. First the sharper edges, then the distant hum. Inside the carriage the quiet deepens, not into silence but into something more forgiving. Time begins to behave differently. Minutes no longer feel stacked end to end. They spread, overlapping softly. Nothing asks for your attention. There are no instructions to follow, no details to memorize. The train does not require you to participate in its motion. It carries you regardless. Your shoulders settle further into the seat, not as an action, but as a consequence. The window now shows less detail. Fields replace streets. Darkness replaces structure. Occasionally, a distant light appears. It remains visible just long enough to be noticed. Then it fades back into the night. No meaning needs to be assigned to it. Inside the cabin, the sense of enclosure grows stronger. Not restrictive, protective. The outside world presses in less. The interior becomes the primary space. The lamp's glow feels farther away now, still present, but less central, like a thought you do not need to complete. Somewhere beneath the floor, the engine maintains its steady presence. It does not vary its rhythm to keep interest. It does not demand acknowledgement. It simply continues. Breath moves in and out, uncounted, uncorrected. The motion of the train becomes easier to ignore. Not because it has stopped, but because it no longer needs to be traced. The seat supports you without adjustment. The cabin holds its shape. Time passes without announcing itself. There is nothing you are expected to do, nothing you are expected to remember. The journey has begun, and that is enough. Outside the window, the city has fully released its hold. The shapes that pass now are wider, less defined, and uninterested in being identified. Fields stretch into the darkness without borders that insist on being traced. Their edges soften before they can be followed. The train moves through this openness without comment. It does not announce where it is. It does not explain what is passing by. Occasionally, a line of trees appears, their silhouettes merging into a single darker mass against the night sky. They hold their form briefly, then dissolve back into the larger quiet. There is no sense of arrival here. only continuation. The window offers movement without detail. The countryside does not present itself as a series of places. It behaves more like a single, extended moment. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere remains unchanged. The warmth is steady. The air feels settled. The lamp continues to glow, but its presence no longer defines the space. It is simply part of the background now. Breathing remains easy. There is nothing to regulate. The train's motion becomes less noticeable as a sensation and more noticeable as an absence of interruption. The smoothness of the ride does not call attention to itself. Time stretches gently, not into something endless, but into something unmeasured. The countryside outside does not ask to be understood. It passes without explanation. From time to time, a distant farmhouse light appears. It stands alone, surrounded by darkness. It remains visible just long enough to be recognized as light, then fades again. No story follows it. The fields return. The darkness returns. Inside, the seat continues to hold you in the same quiet way. There is no pressure to shift or adjust. The window reflects the interior faintly now. The overlap between inside and outside grows stronger. The distinction matters less. Thoughts may surface briefly. They arrive without urgency. They leave without resistance. Nothing here requires engagement. The train moves forward through long, uninterrupted stretches of land. There are no markers to count, no progress to confirm. The countryside does not change to keep interest. It remains consistent, calm, and indifferent to observation. This sameness does not feel dull. It feels stabilizing. Somewhere beyond the window, the ground slopes gently. You do not need to know where it leads. The darkness smooths everything it touches. Inside the cabin, the sense of enclosure remains comfortable. The space does not feel small. It feels complete. The engine's presence continues beneath the floor. Its tone is low and constant. It does not rise or fall dramatically. It remains like a steady breath that belongs to the train itself. Your own breathing aligns naturally, not in rhythm, but in ease. There is no effort involved. The train passes through areas where the darkness feels deeper. Not heavier, just more settled. Occasionally, the sound outside shifts slightly. A change in terrain, a crossing, a distant structure. Each variation is brief. It does not linger. The quiet returns immediately. The countryside offers no points of focus. This absence feels intentional. You are not missing anything. The window now shows little more than motion and shadow. Details are unnecessary. The lamp's reflection moves softly across the glass as the train sways. It stretches, it compresses, it returns to its place. Inside, nothing demands attention. Time continues to pass, but without markers. Minutes lose their shape. The idea of distance becomes less useful here. The train is moving, but where it has been and where it will go matter less. The present moment widens. Outside, the land continues uninterrupted. Fields, darkness, and the occasional line of trees blend into one another. Inside, the cabin maintains its quiet order. Everything remains exactly where it needs to be. There is no need to follow the movement outside. No need to anticipate what comes next. The train does not expect wakefulness. It does not resist rest. Your awareness softens naturally, not fading, just loosening its grip. Thoughts that arise feel lighter. They do not carry weight. They pass like distant lights along the track, noticed briefly, then gone. The countryside continues without variation. This repetition is not mechanical. It is organic. The sameness feels reassuring. The window offers darkness and motion in equal measure. Nothing more is required. Inside, the warmth remains constant. The seat continues its quiet support. The lamp glows on, but it feels farther away now, as if it belongs to an earlier moment. Breathing remains steady, uncounted. The train carries you forward through long, unbroken stretches of night. Nothing changes enough to require response. The countryside does not introduce itself. It simply passes. The interior does not shift. It simply holds. Time moves on quietly, without announcement, and you remain comfortably contained within the motion. The landscape outside begins to change again, though it does not announce the shift. The openness of the plains gives way to darker forms that rise and recede without warning. Mountains do not appear all at once. They suggest themselves first, as deeper shadows layered against the night. The train enters these regions quietly. There is no sense of crossing a boundary, only a gradual thickening of the darkness beyond the window. Tree lines form and dissolve. Their silhouettes stand briefly, then blend back into the surrounding black. The outside world feels less interested in being seen now. It offers fewer details. It keeps its distance. Inside the cabin, the change is subtle but noticeable. The sense of enclosure grows stronger, not because the space has changed, but because the outside has become less present. The window reflects more of the interior now. The glass holds softened images of the lamp, the seat, the quiet lines of the cabin. These reflections overlap with the darkness beyond, making it difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. The train continues its steady movement. The motion feels heavier here, not slower, but more grounded. The engine's presence deepens slightly. Its tone remains low and even, but it carries more weight beneath it. This change does not require attention. It simply exists. The air inside the cabin feels unchanged in temperature, yet different in texture, perhaps denser, perhaps calmer. Breathing continues without effort, in and out, steady, unobserved. Outside, the mountains rise closer to the track. Their presence narrows the view, framing the darkness into smaller spaces. The train moves through these spaces without pause. Occasionally, the window reveals a sudden drop into shadow. A valley, a slope. The view is brief, then it is gone. The darkness returns to its earlier simplicity. Inside, the seat continues to support you without adjustment. Your body responds by remaining still. There is no need to shift position. Nothing feels misaligned. The lamp's glow remains constant, but it feels less central now. It illuminates the space without defining it. Your awareness drifts inward naturally, not away from the world, but toward the quieter parts of it. The train enters a tunnel. The transition is smooth. Light outside disappears without ceremony. Sound softens further, absorbed by stone and distance. Inside, nothing changes. The cabin holds steady. The tunnel passes. Darkness returns. The mountains resume their quiet presence, rising and falling beyond the glass. The outside world feels contained now, almost folded away. Its movements are brief and indistinct. Inside, the sense of safety deepens. The cabin feels sealed in a comforting way. The train continues its ascent. The motion remains consistent, unbroken. You do not need to picture the rails beneath you. You do not need to imagine the route ahead. The journey continues without requiring awareness. Thoughts may arise, but they feel farther away now, less insistent, easier to ignore. They pass without asking for resolution. The outside world grows quieter still. Even the occasional lights seen earlier appear less frequently. When they do appear, they are dimmer, more distant. They do not linger. The interior becomes the primary space, the seat, the air, the steady presence beneath the floor. Everything else recedes. The window now reflects the cabin more clearly than the landscape beyond. The glass holds a softened version of the interior, free of sharp edges. The distinction between movement and stillness becomes less important. The train sways gently as it follows the curve of the mountains. The motion is subtle, barely noticeable. It does not disrupt rest, it supports it. Breathing remains easy, uncounted, unforced. The sense of time continues to loosen. Minutes no longer feel distinct from one another. The idea of progress fades. The train is moving, but the movement no longer suggests destination. It suggests continuation. Outside, the mountains offer no story. They stand, pass, and disappear without explanation. Inside, the cabin remains unchanged. Its quiet consistency becomes familiar. The engine's presence continues beneath you, unwavering. Its sound does not fluctuate enough to demand notice. It becomes part of the background, like distant wind. The tunnel returns briefly. Darkness deepens. Sound softens. Then the night opens again. Each transition is smooth. Nothing startles. The outside world now feels fully optional. It exists, but it does not insist on being observed. Your awareness rests more comfortably inside the cabin, inside the body, inside the breath. The seat supports you in the same quiet way it has since the beginning. Nothing has changed. Nothing needs to. The lamp glows on, steady and distant. Its light feels almost symbolic now, rather than functional. You do not need it to see. The train continues through the mountains, guided by rails you do not need to imagine. The outside world narrows further, then fades again into indistinct darkness. Inside, calm remains uninterrupted. Time passes without markers. There is no signal that announces the moment. The journey continues enclosed, steady, and unhurried. And without effort, your attention rests where it feels most comfortable, inside the quiet space the train provides. The world outside feels wider again, though it offers less to see. Not emptier, just quieter. The landscape has smoothed itself into long, uninterrupted stretches of darkness. Details appear only briefly now, as if testing whether they need to remain. Most do not. The horizon is present without insisting on form. It is simply there, holding space rather than shape. The train continues forward, steady and unremarkable in the best possible way. Nothing about its movement asks to be tracked. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere feels settled, as if it has reached a state it intends to keep. The air does not shift noticeably. The warmth remains even. The lamp still glows, but it no longer defines the space. It feels distant, like a memory of light rather than its source. Your awareness drifts without effort. Not pulled, not pushed, just allowed. Breath moves slowly. It does not follow a pattern that needs noticing. It simply continues. The engine beneath the floor maintains its low presence. Its sound has softened further, not by fading away, but by becoming familiar. It no longer stands out as sound. It becomes part of the background of quiet. Outside, a faint mist moves across the ground. It blurs what little detail remains, softening the edges of the night. The mist does not travel with purpose. It drifts, unhurried, unconcerned with direction. Inside, the seat holds you in the same patient way it has since the beginning. There's no pressure to shift or adjust. Your body remains where it is, supported without effort. The train sways gently, following the track. The motion is subtle enough to be felt without being followed. It is there, then it is not. Then it returns again. Occasionally a distant light appears beyond the window. It may be a small station, a lone building, or something farther away. It remains visible just long enough to be recognized as light. Then it fades. Nothing replaces it. The darkness resumes its quiet hold. Inside the cabin, thoughts arrive less frequently now. When they do appear, they feel lighter. They do not demand attention. They do not carry urgency. They pass through, leaving no trace behind. The sense of time loosens further. Minutes no longer separate themselves cleanly. The idea of before and after becomes less useful. The train continues, and that continuity feels sufficient. Outside, the ground stretches on, level and unbroken. The landscape does not rise or fall dramatically. It remains calm, even predictable in its quietness. Inside, the distinction between awareness and rest becomes less clear. Not because awareness disappears, but because it no longer needs to hold shape. Breathing continues, smooth and uncounted. The sound beneath the floor feels like a steady pulse now. Not rhythmic in a way that demands attention, but constant in a way that reassures. It does not change to signal progress. It does not change to mark time. It simply remains. The window shows darkness and motion in equal measure. Nothing more is required. Reflections from inside the cabin move softly across the glass. They stretch, blur, and return. They do not ask to be interpreted. The train passes through another stretch of quiet openness. There is no clear indication of where it is. The world beyond the window no longer insists on location. Inside, everything remains contained. The space feels complete. There is no need to imagine what lies ahead. No need to recall what has passed. The present moment widens gently, holding just enough to feel stable. Outside, the mist thickens briefly, then thins again. It moves as it wants to. Inside, nothing responds. The lamp continues to glow, though its presence feels almost symbolic now. It is there because it has always been there, not because it is needed. The seat supports you. The air holds you. The motion continues. Breathing remains steady, but less noticeable now. It does not require observation. If a thought arises, it drifts through without attachment. It does not stay long enough to form. The train moves through long, uninterrupted stretches of night. The absence of change becomes comforting. Nothing unexpected happens. The outside world offers a few more distant lights, spaced far apart. Each one appears, holds briefly, then fades. No sequence forms. No pattern demands recognition. Inside, the quiet remains undisturbed. The sound beneath the floor continues its low presence, constant and even. It blends with the gentle sway of the carriage. Together they create a sense of continuation without direction. Time passes without marking itself. The concept of destination becomes less relevant, not because it is near, but because it no longer matters. The train is moving, and that movement feels complete on its own. Outside, the darkness opens and closes subtly. Shadows shift. Then they settle. Inside, the cabin holds its shape. Your awareness rests lightly now, not fixed on anything in particular. The boundaries between listening and resting soften. Breathing continues, quiet and effortless. The engine's presence feels farther away now, though it remains constant. It does not intrude. It supports the sense of ongoing calm. The window shows motion without detail. The glass no longer offers reflections that demand notice. Everything feels simplified. The train continues into the night, unhurried and steady. Nothing asks to be done. Nothing asks to be decided. The moment holds itself, and without needing to let go of anything in particular, you can simply remain here, carried forward by the quiet continuation of the journey as the night unfolds at its own gentle pace. The night outside continues to stretch quietly, offering no clear markers to follow. The darkness is not uniform, but it no longer asks to be distinguished. The ground beyond the window moves steadily, its texture suggested rather than revealed. Whatever lies, there remains content to stay undefined. Inside the cabin, the air feels settled into a familiar balance. Nothing shifts noticeably. Nothing requires adjustment. The seat supports you in the same patient way, as if it has memorized the shape it needs to hold. There is no pressure to move, no signal that anything is out of place. Breath moves in and out, slow enough to feel unremarkable. It does not draw attention to itself. It simply continues. The engine beneath the floor maintains its low presence. Its sound is not something you listen to anymore. It has become part of the environment, like the quiet hum of night itself. Outside, the darkness opens briefly, then closes again. A faint outline appears, perhaps a structure, perhaps only shadow. It passes before it can be identified. Nothing follows it. The window reflects a softened version of the cabin. Edges blur, lines overlap. The distinction between what is inside and what is outside feels less important now. Both exist without competing for awareness. Time moves forward, but it no longer presents itself as a sequence. Moments do not separate cleanly from one another. The idea of waiting fades. There is nothing anticipated. The train continues, steady and unhurried. Its movement does not suggest progress or delay. It suggests continuation. Outside, the land remains level and quiet. There are no dramatic changes to notice. The sameness feels intentional. Inside, calm holds its place without effort. The cabin feels complete, containing exactly what it needs. Thoughts appear less often now. When they do, they arrive without momentum. They leave without leaving a trace. The lamp still glows somewhere nearby. Its light is no longer central. It exists without needing to be noticed. The window offers darkness and motion in equal measure. Nothing more is required from it. Occasionally, a distant light appears again, farther apart now than before. Each one stands alone, briefly acknowledged, then gone. There is no pattern to follow, no meaning to extract. The engine's presence remains steady beneath you. It does not change to mark time. It does not respond to awareness. Breathing continues, quiet and unforced. The train sways gently, following curves in the track that do not need to be imagined. The motion is subtle enough to support rest without interrupting it. Outside, the darkness feels deeper for a while, then opens slightly. The shift is gradual. Nothing signals it clearly. Inside, nothing responds. The cabin remains unchanged. The seat, the air, the steady warmth all remain where they have been. The sense of direction fades further. East and west lose relevance. Movement exists without orientation. The present moment stretches gently, holding only what is necessary. The train continues through long, uninterrupted sections of night. The absence of change becomes comforting. Nothing unexpected happens. Your awareness rests lightly now, not fixed on anything in particular. It does not search for detail. It does not resist stillness. The boundary between listening and resting softens. Both coexist without conflict. Outside, the landscape remains quiet and indistinct. Inside, calm remains uninterrupted. Time passes without announcing itself. There is no need to track it. The journey continues, carried forward by steady motion and quiet presence, and nothing more is required. The night outside continues without interruption. Not empty, not dramatic, simply present. The ground beyond the window moves at a pace that no longer suggests distance. It moves because the train moves. Nothing more needs to be known. Inside the cabin, the balance remains unchanged. The air holds steady. The warmth remains even. The seat supports you in the same quiet way, without asking for movement or response. Your body rests where it is, uncorrected. Breath moves in and out, slow enough to feel ordinary. There is no need to notice its depth or rhythm. The engine beneath the floor continues its low presence. Its sound no longer separates itself from the background. It blends with the quiet, becoming part of it. Outside, the darkness shows slight variations. A softer patch here, a deeper shadow there, but none of them insist on being followed. A faint outline appears briefly, then fades before it can be named. Nothing replaces it. The window reflects the interior gently now. The shapes inside feel more familiar than the movement outside. The boundary between inside and outside continues to soften. Both exist without competing for attention. Time moves forward without dividing itself into moments. There is no clear sense of before or after. The idea of waiting dissolves. There is nothing anticipated. The train continues, steady and unhurried. Its movement does not imply urgency or delay. It implies continuation. Outside, the land remains level and quiet. There are no dramatic changes to notice. The sameness feels intentional, almost reassuring. Inside, calm remains uninterrupted. The cabin feels complete, holding exactly what it needs. Thoughts appear less frequently now. When they do, they arrive gently, without weight. They leave without leaving a trace. The lamp still glows somewhere nearby. Its light no longer defines the space. It exists without needing to be acknowledged. The window offers darkness and motion in equal measure. Nothing more is required from it. Occasionally, a distant light appears again. Each one stands alone, briefly recognized, then gone. There is no pattern to follow, no meaning to extract. The engine's presence remains constant beneath you. It does not change to mark time. It does not respond to awareness. Breathing continues, quiet and unforced. The train sways gently, following curves in the track that do not need to be imagined. The motion is subtle enough to support rest without interrupting it. Outside, the darkness deepens for a while, then opens slightly. The shift is gradual. Nothing signals it clearly. Inside, nothing responds. The cabin remains unchanged. The seat, the air, the steady warmth all remain where they have been. The sense of direction fades further. East and west lose relevance. Movement exists without orientation. The present moment stretches gently, holding only what is necessary. The train continues through long, uninterrupted sections of night. The absence of change becomes comforting. Nothing unexpected happens. Awareness rests lightly now, not fixed on anything in particular. It does not search for detail. It does not resist stillness. The boundary between listening and resting softens. Both coexist without conflict. Outside, the landscape remains quiet and indistinct. Inside, calm remains uninterrupted. Time passes without announcing itself. There is no need to track it. The journey continues, carried forward by steady motion and quiet presence, and nothing more is required. The night continues to hold its shape, unchanged and unhurried. There is no sense that it is moving toward anything in particular. Outside the window, darkness and motion blend into a single, gentle impression. Details no longer separate themselves clearly. Inside the cabin, the space feels settled into a familiar stillness. Everything remains where it has been. The seat supports you without adjustment. There is no signal to move. Nothing feels incomplete. Breath moves softly now, almost unnoticed. It continues without effort or attention. The engine beneath the floor feels distant but steady. Its presence does not intrude. It reassures without announcing itself. Outside, a faint variation in darkness appears, then smooths itself away. Nothing lingers long enough to be remembered. The window reflects the interior only faintly now. The distinction between reflection and shadow feels less important. The train moves forward, but the sensation of movement is soft. It feels more like continuation than travel. Time loosens further. Moments no longer feel separate. The idea of progress fades completely. There is no destination that needs to be reached. The present moment expands gently, holding only what is necessary. Inside, the air remains even. The warmth remains constant. The lamp still glows, but its presence feels symbolic rather than practical. It is there because it has always been there. Thoughts arrive rarely now. When they do, they carry no urgency. They drift through without forming. Outside, the landscape offers no new signals. The darkness remains consistent. Inside, calm continues uninterrupted. The sound beneath the floor remains constant, a low presence that does not mark time. It blends with the gentle sway of the carriage. Together, they create a sense of continuity without direction. Breathing continues, quiet and effortless. Nothing asks to be done. Nothing asks to be decided. The boundary between awareness and rest becomes less defined. Both exist comfortably together. Outside, the night remains unchanged. Inside, nothing shifts. Time passes without measurement. The journey continues without narrative, without destination, without demand. The train carries on through the night, steady and unhurried, and you remain where you are, supported by the quiet continuation of motion as the darkness unfolds at its own gentle pace. The night continues without interruption, holding its quiet shape as the train moves forward. Outside the window, darkness drifts past in a way that no longer suggests distance or direction. It is simply there, moving because movement is happening. Inside the cabin, nothing changes. The air remains even, settled into a balance that does not need attention. The warmth stays consistent, neither rising nor fading. The seat supports you patiently, as it has all along. There is no pressure to shift, no signal that anything needs correcting. Your body rests where it is, held without effort. Breathing moves slowly now, almost unnoticed. It continues on its own, without counting or control. There is no need to follow it. The engine beneath the floor maintains its low presence. Its sound has softened into familiarity, no longer separating itself from the quiet. It does not rise or fall. It simply remains. Outside, a faint variation appears in the darkness, then smooths itself away. Nothing stays long enough to become a thought. Nothing asks to be remembered. The window reflects the interior gently. Edges blur. The line between reflection and shadow feels less important. Time loosens further. Moments no longer arrange themselves in order. The idea of waiting fades. The train continues, steady and unhurried. Its movement does not suggest arrival or departure. It suggests continuation. Thoughts arrive less often now. When they do, they carry little weight. They pass through without forming. Inside, calm remains uninterrupted. Outside, the night remains unchanged. Nothing asks to be done. Nothing asks to be decided. The present moment widens gently, holding only what is necessary, as the train carries on through the quiet night, steady, contained, and at ease.